with my lack of fear for controversy, I would like to say that I feel like the children are resilient statement is a cop out.
It just be adults wanting control. I think that's where a lot of discipline practices come from. I think, discipline is those other things we talk about: routines, schedules, what you do when you get up in the morning, what's your responsibilities, who do you take care of, what are you obligated to? That to me is like discipline. That's what goes into like life. Welcome to Managing with G Marie, where we keep it real about parenting, breaking cycles, and building legacy. I'm your host, GeLisa Marie, a millennial mom from the south side of Chicago who's still growing up while raising the next generation. This isn't your average parenting podcast. Here, we challenge the norms, talk money, legacy, and what it really takes to raise kids in today's world. In today's episode, we're diving into ass whoopings. To spank or nah? And I get to have this conversation with my firstborn child. So let's get into it. My parenting journey started when I was 15 years old and found out that I was going into my junior year of high school, getting ready to be a mom. And I was young. I had to learn to build a support system. So I became active in my kids' life first, more active than I ever was before in terms of their schooling and making sure that they had activities and just trying to be a better me, and then reaching back into my inner child who was passionate about doing education right because of my own experiences in education as a child. And eventually I opened up a digital advocacy clinic among my closest friends. This has made me be very conscious as to how I want to raise my children and the type of intention I place in different parts of their growth and the lessons that I'm teaching them along the way. And for this topic, no one can tell you the type of parent you are if they were not parented by you. So I would really love to bring my eldest child into this conversation. Today, she gets to ask me anything about my parenting. And she is a college student at Clark University in Atlanta who works with the elderly in Georgia and the owner of SanayaANG.com. She is known in the Chicago Bronzeville area for her volunteer work with animals. She's a big sister, a dog mom, a dog grandmom, and my daughter. Please welcome Gigi Prather.
Hey, Mom. Thanks for having me.
Of course. How you like that intro? So I was just going into some things about upbringing, and my mom was generally calm. She was a generally calm, collected person. My stepdad was more of the enforcer, and my mom just kind of chilled about things. And if things were clean and there was no disrespect, my mama was lenient. I believe that once I knew her story, it made a lot of sense to me. She was the oldest of 9 children. She grew up in the 60s. She had a lot of responsibility when it came to like her siblings. And also discipline was just much harsher in that time. And so I think my mom just really just didn't want to hit or spank her kid. I was the first and only born at the time. I had my mom a whole 9 years all by myself. But she was 30 and it was the 80s and she was soaring in corporate America. And my dad actually worked for a very important government entity of the city of Chicago. He really didn't want to become a dad. And she made the decision to keep me anyway. So we kind of always developed this bond. where it was like us against the world, kind of like our relationship, like very much like a friendship, a kinship, but then like also with like respect. She was very sure when she had me. And then that might be why she took so long to maybe have my sister, because maybe she just really put some intention behind like bringing a child into the world. When I had my kids, I was young, broke, missing my mama. You were born in 2005 and I was 16. And by 2008, your sister was on the way. And so my son didn't even get here until I was like 30 years old. But um, you being my first kid, girl, you really had sent me through some stuff before you got all mature and whatnot. Once you got in school, I just felt constantly embarrassed by your actions in school. I wasn't really trying to find out what was going on at the school. I was convinced that I knew what was what. And when you got home, you knew what was coming. So you running these teachers into the ground. They not gonna knock you out. Oh, okay. This is kind of even with my mom being a really calm parent, this is kind of like what was a normal reaction to, a child not doing right in school, or, whatever it is, whatever they're doing that they have like the deficit in, or whatever isn't the way it should be. It's like this child must be doing this on purpose every day. And so as a middle schooler and a teenager, you mellowed out so well, and you just became literally the most helpful and amazing person. You were already helpful, already amazing, but just with a little less spice. And you were also the kid that really watched me struggle. You're so different because you had your dad your whole life, and then you had this experience of kind of being caught between, in the middle of two adults. So I think your personality is just, how to adjust to people. And now at 20, I know that you've like figured out who you are. Like you're very much a person that like I'm sure of who you are. And so with my second born, she was sick at birth and very mild mannered, and she never frustrated me or anything. She was cool and observant. That was it. And then she just became a teenager, and I was like, woof. My son challenges me every day. My son is a challenge. He's so literal. He's sensory sensitive. But mostly he's honest, right? So like your little brother is honest about everything, and that's a big challenge for me because I was kind of raised like, watch your mouth. But right now, like he gonna say whatever it is. And with each child, I really had to figure out how to navigate personalities. And I'm not sure how much help that was, but I was once a very frustrated mom. So I really can't wait to hear these questions from you. I really can't wait to see what you have to say. But no, I don't whoop ass no more because I'm healing.
Yeah, because my little brother, he don't get whoopings.
Yeah, and it's just always like that. It's like, I don't know. I just think you learn kid to kid, experience to experience. It's just like if you work a job or you're in a certain position at a job, like everywhere you go where you work in that role, you're going to get better in that role. And that's just kind of how the parenting is. Like now I know how to be effective without, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me, what was your experience like growing up? Like you're 20 years old now, so in a reflective state, how do you see like your upbringing and the way that adults utilized discipline when you were little?
Um, I mean, in a generalized sense, I feel like my upbringing, it was cool. Like, I would never say like it was bad or nothing. I do have different views on corporal punishment. I feel like whoopings didn't do nothing for me. And every child is
Whoopings
different.
didn't do nothing for you.
No,
Oh,
no, it's just like after a while you realize like, well, if I do it, I'm gonna get a whooping. And so then I don't know. It's just like you just know you're gonna get a whooping, so it's just gotta make
Mm.
that decision. Like, am I gonna risk it? Am I not gonna risk it? But at the end of the day, you know it's coming. But I feel
Okay.
like for every child, there's a different type of discipline that's gonna actually get through to them. I know you all the time that I've always known everything got to end. Definitely true for me.
Like things are only going to affect you for the amount of time you let those things affect you. And then that's the Capricorn in your child. You just be like, okay, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to care. And then,
Yeah. I just personally, I feel like there probably would have been other ways. I don't necessarily. I'm not gonna say I don't remember what I was doing. I know I used to get in trouble for like stuff in school, but I'm sure the way I remember it and the way you remember it are very different.
no, I want you to tell me how you.
It was a mix of a lot of things, like the time I got bored, and so I drew a duck on the cover of my test when I was done.
Oh my
They turned that into like the biggest thing ever. I drew a duck. Like
girl, let me tell you something. It was a state exam. That was a big deal.
I was in fourth grade. I don't know. It was not a big deal to me. That's what I mean when I say we remember
Oh
it
my
differently. Like
God.
that was not a big deal to me. It was a duck on the front of an exam that I was done with before
Wow.
everybody else. That I had the highest score in on. Like
Wow. And that's another thing. Like, you were always so smart. And I just believe you were like incredibly bored in school.
yeah, like I they always say, take your time. Finishing first doesn't make you the best. Yada yada. Like basically saying if you finish first, then you should really go back and check and double check because it's probably not right. But I was always done first. Between like I was always top five done, and I always at the assemblies got the awards because I know you have them. That I had the highest scores.
Yes, girl. I have. So I just moved things and I needed to reorder the bookshelf. And I literally just put all of you guys' trophies just back on the bookshelf. So yes, I have all the trophies, love.
Yeah, I used to get done. And I'd be bored.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
was they didn't always call you for everything. Like they told us that if you sat like not to sit on your knees in the chair, to sit regular. If you sat on
Mm-hmm.
your knees for too long and then you stand up, you would break your leg.
What?
Because your legs will fall asleep and then like you stand up too fast, you break your leg.
Interesting.
Or you would pass out. I'm sorry. I yeah, no. Not to break your leg, you would pass out. My bad.
Are these medical professionals telling you guys these things? Like what?
No,
Where
it
is
was
this
like
coming from?
the tech teacher. She would tell us like, but it's true though. It's the same way when I was in ROTC. They said don't lock your legs, like you'll lose the blood circulation. Your legs fall asleep, you'll pass out. Yeah, and so I would get done with my test to go sit on my knees out of pure boredom just to see. And then
Wow.
when it didn't work, I would tell them like, yeah, you didn't tell the truth. Now I'm disrespectful and I'm arguing.
Oh,
Yeah, I will say though, aside from things I did out of pure boredom that just got me in trouble, I 100% know that there were just teachers in there that just didn't like me.
oh yeah, definitely not.
Am I allowed to say names on the podcast?
Right now, we got like 2 followers, but one day we will not. And I just don't want no smoke, baby.
Oh, okay.
You can
Well,
give them fake names. Don't say their names though.
okay. Um, I guess we could call her Miss J for just looking at the podcast.
Okay.
And she wasn't even a teacher for real. She was. I don't really remember what she did. She was like staff in the school. I don't know. Huh?
I said, yeah, I think I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. And she just did not like me. And I
Yeah.
realized she didn't like me after I left the school. And we had spring fling at the end of the year. And I left at the end of sixth grade. Like, yeah, near the end of sixth grade, like 4 months before it was over. And when I came back for spring fling, mind you, I had already talked to the assistant principal and the principal about me being able to come back for spring fling. Like, they were so cool with me. They let me pay for the little pass so that I could get like popcorn and cotton candy and stuff, like as if I went to the school so I could still be my friends. I only left a few months ago. And I get there, and we could also add in Miss W, which I don't think she had a problem with me, but my problem with her was her backing up Miss J and her negativity. But Miss W called me at the gate when I was coming in because she was like, "Hey, are you supposed to be up here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I already talked to the assistant principal or whatever. Like, he said I could come." So she was like, "Cool." She had let me go at first. Miss J come up and whisper something to her, and then she tells me basically like, "Oh, you can't be up here because you don't go here anymore." So I'm like, "I already told you, like, I talked to the assistant principal." So at this point, now Miss J is talking to me, and she's like, "You need to go. Like, you need to go home." And mind you, I'm only in sixth grade. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not that old, but I'm also not that young. Like, I do understand the fact that I already asked for permission and you don't override the assistant principal. Like, there's nothing that you could say to me. And this might be a reason why I guess the adults thought I was being disrespectful or whatever. But when I know the order of the food chain and you're nowhere near the top, there's nothing you could say to me that's gonna make me go against what I want to do when I already got permission from who's at the top, who actually makes the decisions. And that's honestly how I felt in that particular situation. And so she's standing there and she's like going back and forth with me. And I just got frustrated. So I walked around her. Walked right around her. The principal was on the other side of the lot. And I walked up to the assistant principal and I told him what was going on. And he told her that I could stay. And then he gave me my pass that my grandma had already paid for. And she was just so mad. So mad.
So mad because I'm sure you did it with all type of extra on your face, though.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm not gonna deny it. Probably because I was upset with her. I already wasn't fond of her, and I
Right.
knew she wasn't fond of me. And so that was the beginning of me realizing, like, wow, she just really don't like me. Like, not she just generally mean. Like, there was a couple of teachers that were just generally mean. When you generally mean and you like that with everybody, it just kind of is what it is. At least you like that with everybody. You're not picking and choosing. But we got past that summer and got to seventh grade. And of course, I'm still talking to people in the school. And that's when I realized, like, somebody had told me that one of the other kids had gotten in trouble or something. And Miss J goes and says something along the lines of, and this is not the kind of school we are. Like, you don't want to end up like Gianna. That's why she's already gone. Yada, yada, yada. And it's like,
What?
yeah, it's like, why would you say that? Like, you do know we
Right.
all talk to each other. Like, that's what I really like. That's what I really realized. Like, she just really don't like me.
Mm.
And then my oldest little brother started going to the school. And so I made it my business to go up there when my grandma was up there to get him from school out of pure spite. And so I could definitely see how, to an adult who already doesn't like me and feels like I'm disrespectful, why it would be more motivation to continue to dislike me. But at the same time, like, even though I could comprehend it, like, I was still a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get that. How do you think your parents handled those types of things? Because there were instances where I didn't necessarily know that something had or hadn't taken place. But for the things that I did know or that I was aware of, like, how do you think those things were handled?
I feel like there's definitely a good deal of things that I didn't really mention, like the comments after I left the school. Or I I may or may not have told you what happened at the spring fling. Um
You did tell me, but you did not ever tell me in the same year that it happened. Like, it's always been a story that I've kind of heard over the years after the fact, for
yeah,
sure.
because I feel like, to me, no matter how annoyed I may have felt in the that particular moment, it's like I also had the understanding that at the end of the day, I got what I wanted out of the situation. So it honestly afterwards wasn't a big deal. So I could see
Mm.
that not being something that I necessarily came and said something about. I feel like it's probably like that with a few other situations too.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've had those conversations before where I feel like something wasn't a big deal and you were like, well, I should have told you anyway because it probably was something like some sort of a deal. You know, I said whether it was big, medium, or whatever. Um, yeah, so I could definitely see that being with like me not necessarily providing you with the information to handle certain situations. Um, but with that being said, correlating that to your parenting, I've always been very confident in myself.
Okay.
So once I feel like I already handled it, it never really occurred to me to go back. I need to go back and tell my mom. It's like I'm not even thinking about it. Like literally, not even thinking like, okay, now I don't have to tell her. No, it's just I'm not thinking about it at all till it becomes relevant. Like now, how I'm
Mm.
telling you now is relevant to this conversation, but there was nothing relevant about it then after I enjoy my spring fling. Like,
Right.
so yeah,
Okay. Good. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much. I
yeah,
appreciate that. I want to have raw and real conversations, but I also I do like to be acknowledged. I have just kind of made a lot of mistakes, and so I'm always happy at like the times when shit sticks out to you that's like something great that I've done, or something great in you that you think correlates from my parenting. Hey, I'm all for it. So thank you.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So your questions. You have questions for me.
Yeah, if there were three things that you could have changed about your parenting style. Well, no, if there were two things that you could have changed about your parenting style before Dason
Mm.
and after Dason, what would they be? But I feel like when Dason was born, you definitely hit a very pivotal point in your parenting. There was like you were very self-reflecting. There were a lot of things that you were working on and changing, and I just feel like Dason definitely was like a light for you. So I
Mm.
feel like, and I say before he turned two, just so we can get into like the like right after he was born. I remember right after he was born, like
Right after he was born. Okay, what
yes.
happened?
It was just I just feel like there was just a change in you. Like he just did it for you. Like
Yeah, that was like falling in love again. Like my son is like it. I First of all, okay. I always wanted a son. I always thought I could connect better with the personality of a male and raising a male. I also always thought that would occur at a time where I was in a permanent type of relationship. Yeah, at the time, that's kind of what I thought I was doing. That's what I thought I was in, but I wasn't. So, my son was the wake up call, but also getting, oh, this sounds so crazy to just like say this publicly, but like getting to my third kid and not being married, like again, like a new baby daddy, that was the wake up. That was the wake up. The wake up was like, okay, now I've had, first of all, I don't know if you remember this, but right prior to me getting pregnant with my son, I actually was like low key homeless. Like the place that we were staying at over there, in my mom's building, like I couldn't sustain that place because I had made so much money and done like almost nothing with it. Just bad habits, spending, ain't never had nothing before type of thing, right? And so for a minute, we were in a situation where you all were kind of like with my mom for a quick second. And I found out that I was having my son, and I just really kept quiet until I could get my own space. So that was the first thing to wake me up and be like, okay, you got to save. You can't be spending like a crazy person. Like, you can't be depending on no man to do this, this, and that, and all of that. Like, you're really in this, figuring this out with your family unit. So that was like the first thing. But then everything else was just in every other, and I'm just talking about when I first got pregnant and just wanting to be better in my living situation at the bare minimum. Then, not to mention all the months after that of just reevaluating, like, what am I doing with my life and what is my purpose? And then that following year, starting with, CPS and meeting an amazing mentor and starting to take life coaching. I took life coaching with Coach Mo. Coach Mo would come up to the school in Inglewood and give us coaching sessions, and our principal would fund us having, a coach, and she would come and she would exclusively coach teachers at that time in her career. And it was just, she was really making me do like some really difficult work, and that was like the start of like my new life. Then I went to like a workshop that the school was having because I was a sub. I ended up, going on to do everything else I do now. But when I went to a workshop that the school's affiliates, associates had hosted, it was about like the 12 steps to lending. And then I learned, wow, credit is kind of important. Like, I knew it was important, but wow. So I started working on my credit, every maybe 3 or 4 months of my son being alive, I set a new goal and I hit it. Like, whether it was a goal with my finances or a goal with my credit or a goal with my savings or a goal with investments or a goal with a business or a goal with being a homeowner, whatever that goal was in the last 6 years, I've just set it and didn't forget it, and that is growing up. I also entered my 30s too. So, he's not just the Messiah. I also entered my 30s, baby, and I know we ain't that far apart in age, but that was something different for me. And then around the time of me turning 30, my 30th birthday, when I was pregnant with my son, I kind of had to let go of a relationship with a really, really, really close friend of mine. That was another thing that woke me up. My son is one thing that brought that to me, but there's been so many things that have just happened in the last 6 years to just make me realize my purpose and just start walking towards, a light and being a better person and not being so,
Yeah, I definitely do.
you were just saying, like, what were the two things that I would change about my parenting? Since he's been born and before he was born. So within the 2 years of him being born and before he was born, what would I change?
Yeah, if you only had to pick two.
Okay.
Two from before, two from after.
So two things I would change. Oh, girl. I don't be having a lot of resentment, child. Um,
Wait, can I say something? Um, I think there is a difference that a lot of people don't recognize between resentment and regretting things
oh,
and simply learning from whatever it was that happened and just not wanting to repeat that mistake. Like, I feel like there's not many things in my life that I actually regret. There are definitely things that I would never do again, that it's like definitely could have did without doing that, but I don't particularly regret it because there's something that I learned or gained from it.
right.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of where I'm at, where it's like everything happens for a reason and everything is kind of here and existing and falling in place in my life for a reason. I mean, because it's like when you talk about learning a lesson, it's like, okay, if I learn from something, maybe I do something different with the next kid. But if they ain't got the personality for me to do something different, or if that's not effective for them, or if that's not going to get through to them, then what am I doing, So one of the things I would do differently is I would have paid more attention to things that directly affected your education. Like, for real. Like, it was so hard to like balance having two kids that were kind of close together in age, having you all so young, being broke as hell, not having a man wanting a man, like it was a lot to navigate. And I made choices and prioritized things that just should not have been prioritized, because I was also raising kids at a time where I was young and kind of wanting to have my own life too. So I would prioritize you all's education more than anything. So that's the one thing I would do different. The other thing I would do differently is I think I definitely would have paid more attention to you. Just in general, just who you are, the person. Sometimes I feel like, even though I know for the most part I was a very attentive parent, but sometimes I feel like every time I talk to you or I get around you, I'm learning something new that I feel like I should have already known. I know my kids. Like, I know when you're lying, I know when you're sad, I know when you're crying. You know what I mean? Like, in that maternal instinct sort of way, but I didn't always feel like I had that maternal instinct. I really thought I was broken, thought something was wrong with me, because when y'all was born, all I saw was a bunch of stuff to do. That's what took me so long to have another kid. I never really enjoyed parenting you guys until you got, older and able to lighten the load. And I just being honest. So I just wish that I would have, one, prioritized your education, and not kind of thought of school as a place that y'all go so I can go to work. And having such not so great experiences in education myself, you would just think that I would have been more child facing, student facing, with the way that I kind of approach things, instead of like just kind of always taking adult sides and always kind of, just different things that I just feel like I just shouldn't have handled the way that I did. I look at how different I am now and how like I really handle stuff. Like, I'm really a force at my kids' school. Like, when I go up to your brother's school, baby, like, yeah, like, baby, I'm here. Like, oh, shoot. Okay. Cause she's here. People know her. Like, you know what I mean? And it's not just because I'm coming up because there's a problem. I'm coming up to have meetings. I'm coming up to communicate with them what it is my son needs. I'm coming up because if the phone don't get answered in 48 hours and I don't get a return phone call, let me just come on up and see if I can make an appointment. That's the type of mom I am now. So sometimes with me seeing who I am now, it gives me a better understanding of the person I should have been. So to answer the second part of your question, what is two things that I would have done differently in the first 2 years of him being born? I definitely would have established a much more solid, legal, grounded situation with my son's dad. As opposed to just kind of us leaning on each other's words to believe that each other is going to do what we say we're going to do, or kind of, feeling like my son should be getting something he isn't getting because one of us isn't doing what we're supposed to do, type of thing. So I think that had I hit hard and heavy with the notion that if we are not together, then we need to put something legal in place, regardless to if we're cool or if we're not cool or whatever it is, because people change with the season, honey. So that's the one thing. The other thing I would have done differently after he was born in those first 2 years, because I was going through a lot of different things and a lot of hormonal things and emotional things with just having a baby. I wish I would have paid more attention to your sister, for sure. I definitely dropped the ball, not focusing in on how me bringing a new human into the world was affecting her, how transitioning into middle school was affecting her. All of the different things that were happening and changing in her life at one time. I wish I had gave those things more focus. But I didn't have the capacity to know, to pay attention until everything was just bad. Because, I'm into letting the person be they self. So I thought she was being herself. I never realized that there was just like more going on with how she felt. I just wish I would have been more attentive to that. So.
Okay, I think those are very valid.
Yeah. I also wouldn't have been so quick to put you in the middle of things between your father and I. I think I definitely would, if I could only change one thing and I have no other choice to change any other thing, I would try to change that. I would try to make that situation right. If I could do your childhood all over again. That's also being a good mom. I think for that, in that way, I wasn't a good mom because your needs and what you needed from me just didn't always come before like vengeance of my arch nemesis. Like, it was so important to get my lick back that it was like, it didn't matter if I whacked you in the process. So yeah, and I'm sorry for that. So that's something really big before, my son was born that I would just do very differently is for as much as I could control, because there were some things that were just out of my control. Like stuff was just going to happen how it was going to happen because I can't control other people. But there are things that I definitely didn't have to set certain wheels in motions and things like that. So I do wish I had did things differently where you just weren't so affected by everything that happened, So yeah, and that's everything. Because I really do think that regardless to what, you guys are really great people. I tried my best when I tried my best. When I tried my best, I gave you my best. And it was, worth it, even though you didn't deserve the wait, it was worth the wait. So.
Okay. Did you want me to ask another question?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me see. What from things do you feel like from your childhood specifically correlate with the way you raised your children? Whether it be similarities or opposites.
Man, I think I was really raised in a way where it was always me and my mom. My mom was real chill. My mom wasn't really about whooping me or hitting me or disciplining me in some old out the box way. She did when she felt like it was just absolutely necessary, but it was never the first resort. And I was getting away with all type of stuff, honey. I was terrible. Do you understand me? I was terrible. You literally exist because I was terrible. And I, in the back of my mind or maybe in my subconscious, I always attributed that to her not standing up to me, or maybe she stand up to me, but maybe her aggression was over aggression, as opposed to speaking to me in a firm and respectful way and making sure that discipline and things really stuck, and really being like a woman of her word about even when she say how long I'm on punishment or whatever it is. I just saw, when I got old enough to judge, I saw so many holes and flaws in the way that she went about discipline. And so I believe that my parenting, I run a tight ship. Yeah, like we need to have routines and schedules. And it's not that I didn't have those things growing up, but it was also like one day my mama could wake up and throw a schedule to the wall. You already know, baby, your granny, honey, wake up and decide, let's go travel somewhere, or let's go open up a lemonade stand. Like my mom was very much a hippie, fly by the seat of your pants person. So, there were days where there were weeks where I had lots and lots of structure and on the go and on the go and on the go. And I thrived off of that. And then we had, relaxing moments. And then there were other times where I felt like things was a little too relaxed. I just have always been very cognizant of who I've had, like how soon you all meet someone, if I'm dating someone or if you ever meet anyone at all, things like that. My mom was with my stepdad for most of uh, my life. So I saw a very consistent relationship. And so I've always wanted my children to see very consistent relationships. My mom wasn't a whooping mom like that, but I also wasn't like rambunctious or bratty or mouthy. There also wasn't two of me, So I understand that there's a reason why she did things, a little bit different. And then Black America in the 1980s just looked real different than it did in 2005 when you was born. So, I just think my mom had a lot of compassion and passion in her heart and just never ever wanted to um hurt me, you know what I'm saying? And I just, to me, I feel like I don't want like the world to hurt you. And so when you were younger, I think that I just didn't have the the patience, but I always justified kind of that discipline or that correlation to, I've always kind of justified my discipline with, this is going to help you later. And my mom didn't do this, so I'm going to do this. And I ended up like this, so my kid's not going to end up like this. And I think that's where more of that comes from. I think it's more of like the things I see and feel like could have went differently.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I also think it's a human like flaw that we make too, is we try to do something different and we run right into it. I was just young and not as educated as I am. I also think that there's a level of like control that I think adults want to have when it comes to kids. Like I watch the way people interact with my son, and he's very direct and very honest and clear and also very literal. And that's like, you know, that's the autism. Sometimes people don't catch that, but what they do is like get offended. Like he be offending people, and I don't always want to drag around that he, has ASD or any, like I don't even want to do that. I be wanting people to just look at him as like he's six. Like, why are you listening to anything he say? That's like if he 86, he just gonna say it. Like now, but I also think that you there's a level of like control that I think adults want to have when it comes to kids. Like I watch the way people interact with my son, and he's very direct and very, honest and clear and also very literal. And that's like, you know, that's the autism. Sometimes people don't catch that, but what they do is get offended. I don't always want to drag around that he, has ASD or any, like I don't even want to do that. I be wanting people to just look at him as like he's six. Why are you listening to anything he say? Like that's like if he 86, he just gonna say it. It just be
Okay.
adults wanting control. I think that's where a lot of discipline practices come from. I think, discipline is those other things we talk about: routines, schedules, what you do when you get up in the morning, what's your responsibilities, who do you take care of, what are you obligated to. That to me is like discipline. That's what goes into like life. And when you're not doing that, I think that's a problem. But I don't think, whooping and spanking is like the end all be all for things.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Especially when like, everybody and their personalities are different and then they look at things different. Like you were saying with Dason, how they get offended. I know that I'm biased because he's my brother, but I do feel like also it's because he's a small child. I just expect him to say what he's thinking. So everybody's different with how they look at things. There are people who think that because he's a small child, they don't expect that. But then there are people like me who expect it because of his age. Like,
Got it.
Yeah, just like you get a correlation with you said just like if he was 86, like yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I work with the elderly, and I tell you all the
Mm-hmm.
time, they get to a certain age, and it's like yeah, they just gonna say what they thinking. They just gonna
Mm-hmm.
say it.
Mm-hmm.
They
And that's
probably gonna say
exactly how
what
your
we
brother
all
is.
thinking.
Right.
Yeah,
They say
so
what everybody else afraid to say.
yeah, like they don't have that fear to say that anymore. They've been alive so long. They've seen so much. They've been through so much. It's like, what fear do they have about saying what it is that they thinking? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, who really gonna say something to them? Like, they're an elderly person. You know, you have to respect your elders. It's the same way with small children. They don't have no reason to like fear saying this, that, or the other. Honestly, you know, aside like you know regular curse words or simply
Mm-hmm.
being mean. But when they're expressing their thoughts, it's like, what fear do they have about expressing their thoughts? Like this is a child. So
Right. And then why should they ever be fearful to express their damn thoughts? You know what I'm saying? That's why I say it has to be like um a control thing, because I can remember being young and being like, you getting smart? And if I ask my son right now, like, you getting smart, he be like, Mom, aren't I supposed to be smart? Like he will really have you thinking about the way that you are using language. He only understands what you say for what you're actually saying. So it just makes me more careful about what I say and the words that I use. And I love that. That's another layer of love and learning that my son is bringing to me, and another layer of self-awareness that he's bringing to me, that's just going to go into the next thing that God points me in the direction to do as it pertains to my purpose and how I'm supposed to serve people. So I'm here for, I'm here for it. Yeah. Any other questions? Are you done? You done with me?
um never done with you, but I do think that was my last question.
How did it go?
It was good. I feel good.
I'm glad. I literally can hear you smiling through the audio, and I love that so much. I do. Discipline and the way we raise children and what we think of as properly rearing a child or training a child on how to properly use words or properly approach situations or how they should be treated by other people. I just think it has to be an intentional act. I think you have to be trying, or you just are acting out the person that you are. So you just need to hope that when you're, raising your children, that you've sought out the healing that lets your true authentic self be kind and be patient, because whatever the intention is that you put behind raising your children, it's things they internalize, they process these things for long periods of time. Like, you're 20 and you remember something that happened like all the way in the 6th grade and probably even sooner than that. So it's like you really have to watch and just kind of pay attention to like what you're doing um to children. Like, for real, because they're always going to be thinking about not even the action necessarily, but like the fairness, the looks, the words. I just think, I think that's important. Right? Was that a good point for me to?
Um,
Okay.
um, I'm also would like to find out that I am a psych student with a focus in pediatrics.
Okay.
Children, technically, sure, they are resilient in the ways that you see them in that particular moment, maybe in the next few years. But 10, 20 years later, you don't actually know how it's going to affect their life, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
just subconsciously. So for the things that happen where people justify it or try to put it on the back burner using the statement that children are resilient, I mean, they're adaptive,
Right.
but you don't honestly know what adaptation came from that. And honestly, they may not either, but it shows up. And whether they can see it or not, there's gonna be somebody who's gonna see it one day. And while they may not be able to pinpoint the exact moment, that whatever it is that they're doing or showing or feeling about a certain situation, they may not exactly know where it came from. It's like it probably came from something that happened when they were a kid. A lot of people personalities and even like reactions to certain situations, they may think they know where it come from, but a lot of times it came from something that happened when you were a kid. They're just in your subconscious. Yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely something I've come to realize recently, like within the last few months.
Uh-huh.
I've kind of came up with, or not, I wouldn't say came up with, but came to the realization that I honestly feel like that statement right there is a cop out. And I feel like that's controversial because there are people who honestly feel like children are resilient and they get over things that, or they won't remember, or this is not going to affect them later. But in all honesty, you don't know.
Yeah, those are people that have never been children before. People don't forget, and it does affect them later, and they do think of you are imprinting yourself in a person's life when you do something to them or when you say something to them. And no matter how long or short of a time you're there for, you're going to leave some sort of an imprint unless you just don't. But in the off chance that you do, I think you want it to be one that is positive. I've just made such a seriousness out of my parenting journey and out of supporting other parents in their parenting journey. So even just this podcast and having conversations that provoke thought to people about topics that people aren't really talking about very candidly. I just didn't want this to be that. And I'm super blessed. Thank you for being my first guest. For real. I'm honored.
Of course, Mom.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm going to let you go and go back to being great and raising animals and helping the elderly and girl being a psych major and being an awesome big sister to all these kids, child. And I love you.
I love you
And I'm
too,
going to
Mom.
start editing so this can be ready by Friday.
All right.
Okay. Love you.
Love you too, Mom.
All right. Bye bye.
All right. Good night.